The Vanishing of Maple Street. The town of Hawthorn Heights was quiet, like most small towns, where everyone knew everyone else's business. But there was one house at the end of Maple Street that always seemed a little different. Number 47 was an old, creaky Victorian, tucked behind overgrown ivy and shaded by towering oak trees. For years, its owner, Mrs. Margery Hill, had lived there alone, widowed, mysterious, and rarely seen. One autumn evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, a strange knock echoed on the door of 47 Maple Street. No one had expected a visitor, especially not a stranger, but there she was, Detective Eleanor Finch, her long coat sweeping across the porch. "I'm here about Mrs. Hill," the detective said, her voice calm but firm. "I need to ask a few questions." The neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, had already seen her coming, having witnessed the strange disappearance of Mrs. Hill just 2 days prior. The police had arrived, searched the house, and found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no ransom note, and no trace of the elderly woman. But something didn't sit right with the detective. "I spoke to a few of the neighbors," Eleanor continued. "Everyone says they saw her the day before yesterday. But no one saw her after that, and no one heard anything unusual." Mrs. Thompson shifted nervously. "Well, there's one thing. I've seen something strange. At night, the house glows, just a faint light in the attic window. But that's not the oddest part." "What is?" Eleanor asked, her interest piqued. "I've heard music. Soft, distant piano music. Every night. It doesn't sound like it's coming from the house, but it's clear enough to hear. I always thought it was just the wind or someone in town playing, but it's never stopped." Mrs. Thompson paused, glancing nervously at the house. "And then there's the door. The back door to the attic. It was unlocked that night." The detective nodded and stepped past Mrs. Thompson, approaching the old house. She wasn't sure what she was expecting, maybe a clue, maybe a sign of life, but nothing seemed out of place. She pushed the door open with a creak and immediately felt the chill of the night air inside. Up the stairs she went, every step echoing in the silence. The attic door was at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar. It was strange that the door had been left unlocked, but it wasn't unusual for a house as old as this one. The attic was dark, save for the faint glow from the far corner. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. There, sitting by an old grand piano, was a figure, a woman in a long black dress, her back to the door, hands gracefully playing a soft melody. "Mrs. Hill?" Eleanor asked, her voice a mix of shock and relief. The woman didn't answer. She just continued playing. Eleanor stepped closer, her curiosity overwhelming her caution. As she got closer, she saw it, Mrs. Hill's eyes, wide open but completely glazed over, like she wasn't really there. "Mrs. Hill?" Eleanor said again, her voice barely above a whisper. The music stopped abruptly. The woman slowly turned, her face pale and drained of color, and then, without a word, she stood and walked toward the corner of the attic. Eleanor rushed forward to stop her, but as she reached the spot, the figure vanished into thin air. The attic was empty. The detective stood frozen, heart pounding. She wasn't alone, though. Behind her, a small note had appeared on the piano's bench. She picked it up with trembling hands. It read, "The music will stop when the mystery is solved." Eleanor glanced back toward the empty attic, her mind racing. She knew this wasn't over. Whatever force had taken Mrs. Hill, or whatever had made her disappear, was just beginning to reveal itself. As she left the house, the faint sound of piano music resumed in the distance. Eleanor had a sinking feeling this case would be much more complicated than she had imagined. The town of Hawthorn Heights had secrets, and it seemed the house on Maple Street was just the beginning of the puzzle.